Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around two of the smallest, slimmest lenses available for digital SLRs today. They're the Pentax 40mm and 70mm limited editions, and they're designed to only work with Pentax digital SLRs. I'll start with the 40mm, which I've got mounted here on a Pentax K10D. Now from this angle, this lens doesn't look anything particularly special, but I only have to turn the body to the side for you to see what I'm talking about. That lens is seriously thin, and this is even with its lens hood and cap still attached. If I unscrew them, which takes a couple of seconds here, you can see that this lens is really seriously thin. That's actually only 15mm thick, and if you were to, say, see somebody using this lens, you might have to give it a double take to make sure they weren't trying to take a picture with just a body cap attached. So, it's obviously pretty impressive physically speaking, but what would you use it for in practice? Here's a shot taken with the K10D using the commonly bundled 18 to 55mm kit lens. Here it's zoomed all the way out to 18mm, giving a wide angle coverage, and now zoomed into 55mm for a short telephoto view. Now the 40mm limited edition, it obviously fits in between that range, and this is what you'd get from exactly the same spot. As you can see, it's somewhere in between. Now the coverage offered by this lens, effectively speaking on the Pentax digital SLR, is equivalent to a 60mm lens. Now that's very close to the old standard 50mm lenses that people used on their film SLRs, so it gives a very natural type of magnification that's roughly equivalent to what you get with the human eye. It's also pretty good at doing portraits and throwing the background out of focus. Here's one we took with the 40mm at reasonably close range, and using aperture priority we opened the aperture to its widest f2.8 position, and as you can see it's thrown the background quite nicely out of focus. The Pentax 40mm limited edition lens is clearly physically very impressive, but what's it like to use in practice? Well, the first thing we noticed was the lens cap. This may be quite a classy design, being metallic and screw-on compared to the clip-on plastic models of other lenses, but in use it ain't that quick to remove. Let's say you've got the lens cap attached and you suddenly spot a photo opportunity, maybe a bear running past, or your favourite celebrity is just ordering a cup of coffee at your favourite cafe. So you start unscrewing the lens cap, feverishly looking up to make sure that the subject is still there. Eventually you get the lens cap off and you've just got to keep your fingers crossed that the subject is still there waiting for you to take a picture of it. There's also the fact that anything this slim is not really going to be that easy to grip hold of. Traditionally, with a digital SLR, you'd use your left hand to support the barrel of the lens, but there isn't really much to hold on to in this case, apart from the manual focusing ring. And the thing you have to watch out for is that this ring actually rotates during autofocus, and that can give you a little surprise if you're holding on to it at the time. But luckily lenses like this are so small they don't really need much support from underneath, and cameras like the K10D have got a bit of a grip on the left hand side for you to hold it with both hands, so they're really not big issues to mention. If you're after a good fixed focal length standard lens, it's definitely worth considering. Next up, the Pentax DA 70mm f2.4 limited edition lens. Once again, I've got it mounted here on a Pentax K10D, and once again it doesn't look anything particularly impressive from this angle, but it's when you turn it to the side you can see this is another seriously short lens, and this is with the supplied lens hood attached. Here's the lens hood, and it's an interesting design that you can actually pull out to become more effective in use. Like the 40mm, you unscrew it to remove it. Again, takes you a couple of seconds, but here it is, the lens in its shortest configuration. You can see it is again very slim. Not as slim as the 40mm, but at only 26mm thick, this is still another very discreet optic. So, again, what would you use this for in practice? Here's that landscape shot again, taken with the 40mm, and for comparison, here now with the 70mm, and unsurprisingly it's a tighter composition, showing a more magnified area in the middle. Now, acting at an effective focal length of 105mm, this lens is perfect for portrait work, especially with its f2.4 aperture opened all the way up for a nice blurred background. Again, for comparison, here's that portrait shot again that we took with the 40mm, and you can see that with the aperture wide open you get a nice out of focus background. However, here's the same shot taken with the 70mm with its aperture opened all the way out to f2.4, and you can see that background is so much more blurred. This really has a very small depth of field, and this is exactly the sort of thing that people who are into portrait photography look for. So it's another classy fixed focal length lens for Pentax digital SLR owners, but what are the downsides to using the 70mm in practice? Well, like the 40mm limited edition, we've got a slight issue with the lens cap. Here it is, the lens cap. It's quite a classy aluminium design. There's even a velvet interior, very nice. However, if you don't have the lens hood attached to the lens, there's nowhere for the cap to actually slip onto. It won't fit on. However, this isn't much of an issue in practice because normally you will be using this lens with the lens hood attached at all times, after which this cap will just slip on very comfortably. Like the 40mm, this lens is so slim there's not a great deal for you to grip hold of. And like the 40mm, if you do happen to be holding the manual focusing ring at the time, you'll get a bit of a surprise as it turns during autofocus. But apart from that, there's not a great deal wrong with the 70mm. There is a little bit of coloured fringing even in the middle of the frame, and to see samples of that along with full results for this lens and the 40mm, please visit our full review at www.cameralabs.com. There you'll also find a full review of the Pentax K10D digital SLR which we've used to test these lenses.